My name is Mary Catherine, and this is my discussion and response to the article about research and practice and the gap that exists between it in education. As I read the article, I definitely agree with the fact that the gap exists. I would say that it continually reminded me of experiences I had in schools, overhearing teachers and talking with teachers as they talked with their colleagues about different research that was coming up, and a lot of what you would hear and can hear in classrooms today is that things like the standards and those laws were made by a bunch of people who have no idea what happens in a real classroom. It's a lot of, my cooperating teacher when I was student teaching used to say, it's a bunch of old men in a room that haven't been in a classroom since they were kids. You also hear things like, it doesn't really matter since it's all going to change again soon. They see that it's very cyclical and have trouble understanding why they need to spend the time on it since there's going to be new research again soon that might change it again. I don't think that all teachers by any means negate the need for research, but I do think that it just confirms the fact that the gap exists. And teachers are really busy, so with the little downtime that we do have, if it's not something that is going to make, or that we think is going to make a huge impact, it's not something that we're going to spend time on. So I think a lot of teachers have the mentality that if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I don't need to spend time on this when my teaching practices are already working. That being said, as a teacher, I feel like I had a big bias as I was reading this article, being one of the practitioners, because I was continually agreeing with their plight and their viewpoint, much more so than that of the researcher. But as I was reading about the researcher and how it would be more beneficial to the people who are actually using the research if it was more applicable and understandable, it reminded me a little bit of what we were reading in our textbook about the principles of research and beneficence that states that it should always aim to increase understanding and opportunity and general knowledge to the public. So it made me wonder whether this research was upholding that, because if the people who are supposed to be benefiting from it aren't using it or getting it, then it's not really increasing their understanding. That being said, I think that the overall big issues that were present in the article is that researchers need their hypotheses to be broad and general in order to study them and create the theories, but the teachers need them to be more directly applicable to their everyday classroom. And second, I would say that the fact that research, they stated, is created in a top-down fashion. So the researchers produce and experiment and analyze the information and then disseminate it to the practitioners, doesn't take into consideration the concerns and the needs of the practitioners. Some suggestions that they made is having teachers collaborate more throughout every step of the research. I think that would be ideal. I don't know how practical it is, because I think teachers, like I've said before, are really, really busy, and I wonder how likely it is that the teachers will be able to do that. Maybe after this class, though, I'll have a different viewpoint and understanding of how teachers can also be the researchers. What else? I also, as I was reading, and they talked about how the research is disseminated to the teachers and the practitioners. They stated that teachers would use the research, but they don't have the means or mechanisms to access it. And one thing that sort of sparked a thought in my mind is that teachers are required to do a lot of professional development, and I feel like what I've seen of it so far, I'm a new teacher, but what I've seen of professional development so far seems to be a lot based on research. So it's on learning the new best practices based on new research, or the research on how to work with gifted children or with ESL children, and that's all new research. So I think it is being disseminated to teachers. I just wonder how much teachers are then using it in their classrooms. One issue I had with the article was during the role expansion with one of their suggestions for how to fix it. They talked about adding, instead of collaborating in each step of the process, sort of switching roles. So having the teachers performing the research and then having the research and taking them out of the classroom to do that and putting the researchers in the classroom. I just think that there's so much pressure on teachers as is to take them out of the classroom and have a non-teacher in there. Might benefit the research, but I don't know if that would benefit the students. They also talked about a research translator, which is something that I think in theory might be great. It might solve some of the issues. I just think that it is slightly impractical based on the budget issues that already exist in education. Adding more people to the problem might not solve the problem. But overall, I agree that it definitely exists. And I agree when it says, do teachers need research? I do think they need it because we need to stay up to date on the best practices. And also when it said it helps us justify what we do in the classroom. So it is important, and it's a matter of finding ways to make sure that that gap doesn't exist anymore. Thanks.